The mansion on Willow Street stood like a monument to success, its grand pillars and polished driveway a testament to the life Marcus and Evelyn Carter had built together. To their friends, they were the perfect couple, wealthy, beautiful, and modern in every sense. Their open marriage was whispered about in social circles, an arrangement that fascinated some and horrified others. But Evelyn had always believed in honesty. She and Marcus had rules: no secrets, no lies, always use protection, and never let emotions get in the way. It was their way of keeping the passion alive without suffocating each other. It worked, until it didn't. It started with a shadow in Marcus's eyes, a slight change in his habits. He worked late more often. His phone was always face down. He showered the moment he got home, as if scrubbing away something more than the grime of the day. Evelyn noticed, but she had trained herself not to ask questions. After all, wasn't that the whole point of their arrangement? Then came the illness. It began as fatigue. Evelyn, always strong and full of energy, found herself exhausted after simple tasks. She brushed it off as stress, but then came the night sweats, the fevers, the unexplained weight loss. At first, she blamed it on a bad diet, then maybe a flu that wouldn't go away. But deep down, a terrible suspicion grew. When she finally went to the doctor, the truth shattered her world. "Evelyn, your test came back positive for HIV." The words hit like a wrecking ball. Her mind refused to process them at first. She sat there staring at the doctor, unable to move, unable to breathe. "But that's not possible," she whispered. She had always been careful, always, and she trusted Marcus to be the same. Unless... The doctor was speaking, but Evelyn barely heard her. She stumbled out of the clinic, her world spinning. The moment she stepped into her car, she screamed, a raw, broken sound that no one heard. That night, when Marcus walked through the door, she was waiting. He barely had time to greet her before she threw the test results at him. "What the hell is this, Marcus?" He froze. The color drained from his face, and in that moment, Evelyn knew. "Evie, Don't you dare call me that," she snapped. "You promised, Marcus. You promised we'd always be safe." His silence was an answer in itself. Evelyn's hands trembled, her breath coming in short gasps. Rage and devastation twisted inside her, a storm she couldn't control. She wanted to hurt him. She wanted to destroy him the way he had destroyed her. But most of all, she wanted the truth. "Who?" she demanded. "Who did you do this with?" Marcus hesitated. For the first time in their 10-year marriage, she saw fear in his eyes. And then he said a name. Veronica. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Veronica Hale, the nurse from his gym, the one who always smiled too wide, laughed too much at his jokes, the one Evelyn had told herself not to worry about. She staggered back as if he had struck her, her hands clenched into fists. She could kill him, right here, right now. Instead, she turned and walked away. Marcus called after her, but she didn't look back. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming anymore. She was planning, and when she was done, her revenge would be something even Eve never saw coming. Evelyn sat in her darkened bedroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was a stranger, gaunt, hollow-eyed, a ghost of the vibrant, confident wife she had been. The weight of Marcus's betrayal pressed down on her, but beneath the pain, something darker was brewing. She thought about Veronica Hale, the woman who had ruined her life. Young, beautiful, a nurse of all things. How ironic. The very person meant to care for the sick had infected her with a disease she could never escape. But Veronica wasn't the only one to blame. Marcus had made a choice. He had risked Evelyn's life for a moment of pleasure. A knock at the bedroom door pulled her from her thoughts. "Evelyn, please, we need to talk." Marcus's voice came through, muffled but desperate. She inhaled sharply, schooling her face into cold indifference before opening the door. Marcus looked like hell. His suit was wrinkled, his usually perfect hair disheveled. But Evelyn felt no sympathy. "What do you want?" she asked, arms crossed. "Evie, I swear I didn't know. I would never—" "Don't," she interrupted. "Just don't." A long silence stretched between them. "Are you going to leave me?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn stared at him. The truth was, she didn't know yet, but leaving wasn't enough. She needed justice. She needed revenge. I don't know, she said finally, but you need to tell me everything. How long were you with her? Marcus hesitated. Tell me, or I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done, she threatened. His shoulders sagged. It was only a few times. I swear, she was persistent, and I was weak. Evelyn scoffed. Weak? You're pathetic. Marcus flinched but said nothing. You said a few times, Evelyn continued. That means you knew she was dangerous, and you still went back? Marcus swallowed hard. I thought she was clean. She told me she was tested regularly. Evelyn let out a bitter laugh. And you just believed her? Without protection? He looked down, ashamed. A wave of fury crashed over her, but she swallowed it. Anger wouldn't be enough. She needed a plan. The next day, Evelyn visited a private investigator. Jack Monroe was an old-school detective with a reputation for uncovering secrets that people would kill to keep hidden. His office smelled of stale coffee and cigar smoke, and the walls were lined with old case files. He eyed Evelyn from behind his cluttered desk, his gray beard hiding most of his expression. Mrs. Carter, he said, leaning back, what can I do for you? I need you to find out everything about a woman named Veronica Hale, Evelyn said, sliding a photo of the nurse across the desk. Jack glanced at the picture, then looked back at Evelyn. What exactly are you hoping to find? Evelyn folded her hands. Something I can use against her. I want to ruin her. Jack studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll see what I can dig up, but I have to ask, why? Evelyn's lips curled into a cold smile. Because she ruined me first. Jack didn't ask any more questions. He just picked up the photo and got to work. Days passed. Evelyn played the part of the grieving wife, letting Marcus believe she was still undecided about their marriage. She needed him to think she was broken, unsure. Meanwhile, Jack delivered results. Veronica Hale wasn't as innocent as she seemed. She had a history of affairs with married men, doctors, businessmen, even a politician. And Evelyn wasn't the first woman whose life she had destroyed. One woman, Patricia Langley, had divorced her husband after catching him with Veronica. Shortly after, Patricia was hospitalized for an unknown illness. She recovered, but her ex-husband vanished, presumed dead after his car was found submerged in a lake. Evelyn leaned forward in her seat as Jack laid out the information. You think she's dangerous? She asked. Jack sighed. I think she's bad news. But so is your husband, if we're being honest. Evelyn smirked. Oh, I know, and that's why I need your help with something else. Jack arched a brow. Which is? Evelyn's smile widened. Helping me make sure neither of them ever hurt anyone again. Jack stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. That night, Evelyn lay beside Marcus in bed, staring at the ceiling. He was asleep, his breathing even. She turned to look at him, her expression blank. This was the man she had loved, the man she had built a life with, and the man she was going to destroy. Evelyn spent the next few weeks playing the part of a heartbroken wife. She cooked Marcus's favorite meals, sat through his apologies, and even let him believe they could fix things. She needed him to trust her again, to believe she was willing to forgive. At the same time, she and Jack Monroe put their plan in motion. Jack had been watching Veronica Hale. The nurse was reckless, careless, and exactly the kind of person who thought she could get away with anything. She worked at St. Luke's Hospital and was known for her flirty, too friendly behavior with male patients and staff. But Jack had discovered something more interesting. Veronica was seeing someone new, a doctor, married, just like Marcus, and Evelyn intended to use that. One evening, Evelyn invited Marcus to dinner at their favorite steakhouse. She wore a sleek black dress, her hair styled to perfection, and she watched as Marcus took it all in with cautious optimism. You look beautiful, he said, reaching for her hand across the table. Evelyn smiled. I want to move past this, Marcus. His eyes lit up with relief. You have no idea how much that means to me, Evie. She suppressed the disgust curling in her stomach. Let's start fresh, she said sweetly. No more secrets. Marcus nodded eagerly. I swear, Evelyn, no more secrets. She squeezed his hand. Good, because I have something special planned for us. Marcus looked intrigued. What kind of special? She leaned forward, her voice soft and inviting. A night just for us. No distractions, no phones, just us. Marcus swallowed hard. That sounds perfect. Evelyn smiled, but inside she was ice cold. She had just set the first piece of her trap. The next day, Jack sent Evelyn everything he had on Veronica's new affair. Pictures, texts, even a short recording of the woman flirting with the doctor in the hospital parking lot. It was all Evelyn needed. She drafted a message, attached a few choice photos, and sent it to Veronica. I know what you've been doing, and so does his wife. Less than 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Who is this? Evelyn smirked. Me? Just someone who knows what it's like to have you ruin their life. Veronica's response was almost instant. Unknown number. What do you want? Evelyn. To meet. Tonight. 9 p.m., the Belmont Hotel, room 214. If you don't show, I send everything to his wife. A long pause, then. Unknown number. Fine. Evelyn's grip tightened on the phone. The pieces were in place, and tonight, everything would change. That evening, Evelyn prepared carefully. She rented the hotel room under a fake name, making sure there was no way it could be traced back to her. She set up a hidden camera in the corner of the room, facing the bed, and adjusted the angle until it was perfect. She poured herself a drink, sat on the edge of the bed, and waited. At exactly 9:10 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Evelyn opened it to find Veronica Hale standing there, in a tight red dress, her expression cold. This better be worth my time, Veronica snapped, stepping inside. Evelyn shut the door behind her. Oh, it will be, she said, pouring a second glass of wine and handing it to Veronica. The nurse hesitated, then took it. What do you want? She asked. Evelyn sat down, crossing her legs. I want to make you an offer. Veronica frowned. An offer? Evelyn took a sip of her drink, watching the other woman carefully. I want you to help me get rid of Marcus. Veronica blinked. What? Evelyn leaned forward. I know he's been seeing other women besides you. I know he's reckless, careless, and I know you hate him just as much as I do. Veronica scoffed. Hate him? I don't care enough to hate him. Evelyn tilted her head. Then why are you here? Veronica's grip tightened around her glass. Evelyn smirked. That's what I thought. A long silence stretched between them. What exactly are you suggesting? Veronica finally asked. Evelyn's smile widened. A way for both of us to win. And just like that, Veronica took the bait. Hours later, as Evelyn left the hotel, she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Control. Her plan was in motion. And by the time it was over, Marcus Carter would pay for everything he had done. Evelyn had spent years perfecting the art of control. Every move in her life had been carefully calculated, every risk weighed against the potential reward. But now she was playing a different kind of game, a game of deception, of life and death. And she was going to win. 2 nights after her meeting with Veronica, Evelyn prepared for the final stage of her plan. Marcus still believed she was working toward forgiveness, that their marriage could be salvaged. He had no idea that she had already decided his fate. Sitting across from him at the dinner table, she watched as he took another sip of his whiskey, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. I was thinking, she said casually, running her finger along the rim of her wineglass. Maybe we should take a trip. Just us. Marcus looked up, surprised but pleased. A trip? Evelyn nodded. Somewhere private, somewhere we can reconnect. A hopeful smile tugged at his lips. That sounds perfect, Evie. She smiled back. Good, because I've already booked the cabin. The cabin was deep in the woods, secluded and far from prying eyes. Evelyn had chosen it carefully. A place with no security cameras, no nosy neighbors, just miles of trees and silence. Marcus had no reason to suspect anything. He thought this was a fresh start. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. The night of the trip, Evelyn packed a single suitcase, making sure to include everything she needed. And among the neatly folded clothes and toiletries was a small, unmarked bottle, a lethal dose of digitalis. Jack Monroe had provided it, warning her that the drug would slow the heart, make the death look natural if used correctly. Evelyn had done her research. She knew the right dosage, the perfect timing. All that was left was execution. The drive to the cabin was long, winding through dense forest. Marcus was in good spirits, playing music, making conversation. Evelyn let him enjoy it. By the time they arrived, the sun was setting, casting golden light over the trees. The cabin was cozy, with a stone fireplace and large windows that looked out into the endless stretch of wilderness. Marcus brought in their bags while Evelyn prepared dinner. A simple meal, steak, potatoes, red wine. And in Marcus's drink, 3 drops of digitalis. Not enough to kill him, not yet. Just enough to make him feel weak, disoriented. He didn't notice the difference. He laughed, ate, kissed her on the cheek, completely unaware that the woman he had betrayed was poisoning him with every sip. An hour later, he swayed on his feet. "Evie, I don't feel so good," he muttered, pressing a hand to his chest. She rushed to him, playing the concerned wife. "You're probably just exhausted. Let's get you to bed." He nodded sluggishly, allowing her to guide him to the bedroom. By the time his head hit the pillow, he was already slipping into unconsciousness. Evelyn stood over him, watching his shallow breaths, her heart pounding. It would be so easy, just one more dose, and he would never wake up. But as she reached for the bottle, her phone buzzed. A message from Jack Monroe. "Jack, change of plans. Call me now." Frowning, Evelyn stepped out of the room, dialing his number. Jack picked up immediately. "We have a problem," he said. "I just got word that someone's looking into Veronica. A detective from St. Luke's. Someone must have tipped them off about her affairs." Evelyn's stomach twisted. "What does that mean for us?" "It means if she cracks under pressure, she might talk," Jack said. "And if she talks?" Evelyn's grip on the phone tightened. She had been so close. But now the game had changed. She couldn't kill Marcus. Not yet. She had to make sure Veronica wouldn't betray her first. "Delay him," Jack advised. "Don't do anything until I find out who's investigating her." Evelyn exhaled sharply, looking back toward the bedroom. Marcus was unconscious, vulnerable, but she had to wait. For now. She had played the long game before, and she would win this time too. Evelyn barely slept. She lay beside Marcus, listening to his shallow breaths, her mind racing. The plan had been so simple. Seduce him, make him believe in a fresh start, and then quietly erase him from existence. But now there was a problem. Someone was investigating Veronica. And if the detective pushed too hard, she might talk. She needed to act fast. By morning, Marcus was pale and weak, but he assumed it was just exhaustion from the long drive and the wine. Evelyn played the doting wife, making him tea, rubbing his shoulders, telling him they should stay in the cabin a few more days so he could rest. He didn't argue. He trusted her. By noon, she had locked herself in the bathroom, dialing Jack Monroe. "Tell me, you have something," she said, her voice low. "I do," Jack replied. "The detective's name is Caleb Henshaw. He's been on Veronica's case for a week. Word is, he caught wind of her involvement with multiple doctors at St. Luke's. And guess what? One of them just confessed to an affair." Evelyn clenched her jaw. "Which one?" "Not Marcus," Jack assured her. "Yet, but it's only a matter of time. If Veronica is cornered, she might give up everything, including your name." Evelyn's fingers tightened around the phone. "I need you to handle it," she said. Jack sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." She didn't care. That evening, Evelyn prepared Marcus another drink, this time without poison. If she wanted to delay his death, she needed to keep him weak but alive. They sat by the fireplace, Marcus resting his head against her shoulder. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. Evelyn smiled softly. "Number you don't." She ran her fingers through his hair, pretending to be affectionate, while her mind was already miles away, on Veronica, on Detective Henshaw, on the next move she had to make. The plan had changed, but Evelyn was always ready to adapt. The next morning, Jack called her with an update. "We have a window," he said. "Detective Henshaw is working late tonight. That means Veronica will be home alone." Evelyn's stomach fluttered with excitement. "Perfect." Jack hesitated. "Evie, are you sure about this?" She exhaled slowly. "We've come too far to stop now." A long pause, then Jack said, "All right, I'll take care of it." Evelyn hung up, feeling the weight of her choices settle on her shoulders. By tomorrow, Veronica Hale would no longer be a problem. And then she could finally finish what she started. The night was unusually quiet. Evelyn lay in bed beside Marcus, her body still but her mind alert. She knew Jack was out there, handling Veronica, making sure the loose ends were tied. She should have felt relief. Instead, for the first time, she felt something close to fear. Not guilt. She had left that emotion behind the moment Marcus infected her. But fear. Fear that something would go wrong. At exactly 1:37 a.m., her phone vibrated under the pillow. A single message from Jack. "It's done." Evelyn exhaled. It was over. Veronica Hale was gone. Now there was nothing standing between her and revenge. Morning came, and Marcus was worse. His body felt heavy, his movements sluggish. "We should get you to a doctor," Evelyn said, her voice laced with fake concern. Marcus shook his head. "No, I just need rest." Evelyn forced a smile. "All right, baby. Whatever you need." She had planned to finish him tonight. One final dose. A quiet death in the middle of nowhere. But at 10:15 a.m., her plan unraveled. A knock at the cabin door. Firm, unrelenting. Evelyn's stomach twisted. Marcus frowned. "Who the hell?" She forced herself to stay calm. "I'll get it." She walked to the door, inhaled deeply, then opened it. Standing on the porch was a man in a dark brown coat, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Carter?" he asked. Evelyn's heartbeat spiked. "Yes?" He pulled out a badge. "Detective Caleb Henshaw. I need to speak with you about Veronica Hale." Evelyn kept her face blank. I don't understand." His eyes were sharp, assessing. "She was murdered last night." A pause. A single second of silence. But Evelyn knew he had noticed it. Oh my God," she gasped, covering her mouth, feigning shock. "Murdered? How?" Henshaw studied her. "That's what we're trying to find out." Evelyn forced herself to breathe normally. I haven't seen her in months." The detective nodded slowly, as if filing that away. Then he looked over her shoulder. "Is your husband home?" Evelyn swallowed. "He's sick. He's resting." "Right." Henshaw's expression didn't change. "Mind if I come in?" Evelyn hesitated. "Just for a moment." Then she stepped aside. Of course, detective. She had played this game before, and she wouldn't lose now. Evelyn felt the detective's presence like a weight pressing against her chest. She had anticipated a quiet, controlled ending to her revenge. But now Caleb Henshaw was in her living room, observing everything, picking apart the lies before she could even weave them. Marcus was still in the bedroom, sick and unaware. If he woke up now, his confusion might ruin everything. She needed to get Henshaw out, fast. The detective glanced around the cabin, his gaze landing on the half-empty wine bottle on the counter, the untouched plate from last night's dinner, and finally on Evelyn herself. "You said you haven't seen Veronica in months?" he asked, his voice casual but firm. Evelyn nodded. "That's right. We lost touch." Henshaw hummed. "Interesting, because her phone records show she called this number twice in the last week." Evelyn's stomach lurched, but she didn't let it show. I didn't answer." Henshaw tilted his head. "So why would she call you?" Evelyn swallowed. "I don't know. Maybe she needed something." The detective took a slow step forward. "And what about your husband?" Evelyn forced herself to stay calm. "What about him? Did he know Veronica?" She faked a bitter laugh. "He had an affair with her, detective. Of course, he knew her." Henshaw nodded. "Right, the affair." He paused. "Did you know she was murdered by injection?" Evelyn blinked. "Injection?" Henshaw didn't take his eyes off her. "Yeah, a lethal dose of potassium chloride. Clean, efficient, something a medical professional would know how to do." Evelyn's fingers twitched. Jack had said he would handle it, but this was risky. "Marcus is a doctor," Henshaw continued, "and Veronica was a nurse." He took a step closer. "Tell me, Mrs. Carter, where was your husband last night?" Evelyn's throat went dry. "He was here, with me." Henshaw held her gaze. "The whole night?" "Yes." Silence. Then the detective reached into his pocket and pulled out a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a crumpled note stained with what looked like blood. Evelyn's breath caught. "This was found in Veronica's hand," Henshaw said. "Looks like she tried to write something before she died." He turned the bag over. Scrawled in shaky, desperate handwriting was one word: Evie. Evelyn's blood turned to ice. Henshaw watched her reaction closely. "You wouldn't happen to know why she'd write your name, would you?" Evelyn's mind raced. She needed an excuse, a way out. A groan came from the bedroom. "Marcus." The detective's head snapped toward the sound. "Is that your husband?" Evelyn forced a laugh. "He's not well. He needs rest." Henshaw's eyes darkened. "Then I should check on him." Before she could stop him, he was already moving. Evelyn's pulse pounded in her ears. If Marcus was awake, if he said the wrong thing, she followed Henshaw, her mind spinning, her fingers inching toward the fireplace poker. One last move. One last chance. If she had to end this with blood, she would. She would not lose. Not now. Not ever.